Hi guys, doing a quick tile map tutorial for Unity 2017.2. It's going to include a quick demo, making tiles, making tile maps, and painting with the tiles. So let's begin. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about creating our grid. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this scene. And then I'm going to open a new scene so we can just kind of do this all from scratch. Okay, new scene, new scene. Ah, yeah, I went to a new scene. I've still got my tile palette up. Kind of confused me there for a second. So the first thing we're going to do in the new scene, we've only got a camera in here right now, is we're going to right click over here. We're going to go down to 2D Effects, Tilemap. This is going to create a grid in our thing, and we're going to open up the grid. We've got a tile map, and the first thing I can do is I can just draw everything back in here, right? Actually, let's use this brick that we just made. So we've got a brick. Kind of make some grass. And then let's bring in that, what's it called? That little character controller I was using earlier. So, got our character controller. Let's start up the scene and see what happens. Well, the first thing, I don't know if you saw that, it was really quite fast, but the first thing that happened was our character collider just fell right through the scene. And why was that happening? Well, the issue was that none of these sprites have a collider on them right now. And we did select a collider earlier, you know, we chose between sprite and a grid collider. But now let's take a look at what's actually happening. So, let me go back over the hierarchy, or the hierarchy. We've got a tile map, right? Let's rename this tile map ground layer. As you can see over here, it updated to ground layer over here. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to click on this tile map, and we've got a tile map. What is this called? Just the tile map file, a tile map renderer. But what we're going to want to do is add a component. And we're going to go down to Tilemap Collider. And this is going to give our ground layer a collider. Let's see. Yep. So let's hit play and see what happens. And you can see right here the difference I was talking about earlier. The grid right here, collider, has this entire square marked out. But our grass collider only has the sprite. It's only colliding with the pixels. And that looks like a whole lot of collision going on right there. So I don't know if that would actually decrease performance. So let's see what happens. Hit play. So as you can see, our character falls right onto the grass. He's colliding with it. And he's walking just like right over it. What I want him to do is I want him to hit the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this, going to right-click on the grid, and go down to 2D Objects and create another tile map under the grid. Now you can just click right here, create a 2D Object tile map, and it actually creates an entirely separate grid, and that's not what we want to do. So let me go ahead and delete this, and go down over here to tile map. This new tile map, we're going to call the foreground layer. And what I'm going to want to do over here on the tile map palette window is just delete all these grass textures. Also on here, since it's in the foreground, I'm going to change the order layer to 12, something higher than what the character is. And that's going to allow this entire layer to appear before the character. So I believe the character is now set to... Actually, I think I set him to a bunch of different things, yeah. Set to a bunch of different things. So let's change this foreground layer to like 20. Get our little paintbrush tool out, and then we're going to paint right here. Just like that. So when I hit play now, Oh dear, what happened? He shouldn't be colliding with the grass. Give me a second to figure this out. Let me try deleting this one more time. Oh. I guess I'm sorry. I put that grass back on the ground layer instead of the foreground layer. So, over here on the active tile map, we need to change it over to foreground. Get our paintbrush out. We're going to paint the grass back on here, and for shits and giggles, let's just paint like a quick little brick thing. So we're going to hit play again. So as you can see, our little character is falling through the grass now. He's colliding over here on this brick. But over here, since we put this brick on the foreground layer, he's passing behind it. So that's all good and fun. So what are the other things we can do with these tile maps? Is we have the ground layer, and first of all, let's tag this as ground, because this is how the character controller knows that it is the ground and he can jump. So as we can see, play. Now he can jump on the ground. But we've still got this issue of he is not sliding down the wall. And one of the things that's going on here is that the ground layer has like a default material on it right now. Let's set it to ground. And let's create a new layer called the wall layer. Awesome. So real quick, let's go back to the ground layer and erase this wall right here. And we'll switch over to the wall layer. Use this brick and make a new wall really high. Alrighty. So what happens when we do this? Hit play, and we try to jump into this wall, and we never put a collider on it. But we can see that the layer's set to 0, so he's actually appearing in front of the wall instead of behind it, as he does over here. So real quick, let's put a collider on this. This tile map layer. Add component, tile map collider. The other thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a new material. And let's quickly just go over making a new material. Let me go back over to the tutorial. I'm going to right click, create material. Not material, I'm sorry. Physics material 2D. This physics material 2D will be like wall slide. We're going to change the friction to 0. So now he's not going to like dig into the wall. He'll just slide right down it when he jumps into it. So going back over to the hierarchy, wall. We're on scene right now. We're going to want to switch over to assets, wall slide. You can see the other one I did was like slide wall. I'm so inventive with names. So here we go. We're sliding down the wall now instead of like digging into it. Real quick, just to show you again, I'm going to, it's on the foreground layer, erase this foreground, go back to the ground layer, brick this all up. Ground, no slide, because we put like a friction material to it, keeping it from sliding. This one, no such luck. So that's the basics of using the tile map thing. Let's go over a few of these tools real quick. We've got the arrow selection. It doesn't really do much. We've got this. It's going to allow us to move our tiles around. But as you can see over here, I'm not on this layer, so I can't affect this layer. So we select a tile, we move it. We've got the paintbrush, which I've been using. We've got a paint box filled window, which allows us, you click once. Oh, sorry. Ah, why did it go back to that? I did the box fill. Box fill. Click once. Click and drag. I'm sorry, click and drag. And this will allow us to create, let's go to brick. Oh, box fill. Creating a lot of area real quick. And then you can just use your eraser tool to just kind of dig in. I prefer to dig into stuff instead. One of the other things you can do, oh, and then a bucket fill, which, so if you want to do a lot, I don't really recommend the bucket fill. Let's just kind of back up what we've been doing there. Let's go over a couple other things. You can hit the edit button, and that allows us, we're no longer going to be interfering so much with this layer as we are going to be interfering with the tile map itself. We're editing the tile maps. So, oh shoot. Ah, curses. Let's bring that brick back in. Nope. Bringing the tile brick back in. And we're going to paint in here. Just like painting like a huge brick. We're going to paint a huge brick like that, right? And that. So I click edit. I select this whole thing. And then when I go into paint, it's going to paint with that actual shape. So I can make quick designs like that if I wanted to. But I don't want to. Also, with you can do this with the eraser too. You can select a bunch of things and it changes your brush size. You can select everything, it'll put everything in, but it doesn't work quite well. Let's make a big eraser real quick and just erase all this stuff. So that's the basics of the tiles. Real quick, let's go back to that test 2D scene. I don't want to save this. What did I say I was going to talk about? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll go into more depth over some of the other things like tint brushes, programmable tiles, and stuff like that in later tutorials, but this should help get you started with your level creation. Thanks for watching.